whatever the goal is, keep that in view at all times, because you can get lost in the day-to-day of it all, but understanding that what you're doing is going to cause positive change in the world. So keeping that in the forefront of your mind, like that's something that you can't teach that, but you have to learn that for sure.
Okay.
So for me, equality looks like everyone having access to healthy foods, and healthy is a word I use loosely.
Okay.
Healthy is what's good for your body, not necessarily what you need to eat and what I need to eat are very two different things.
Yeah, yeah.
But finding and having access to those things helps you have a healthier body, and then that lowers costs of healthcare, that lowers the cost, like healthcare is just ridiculously priced in the Western world. So being able to address an issue with what you're eating on one day-to-day basis can have such a huge impact down the line. It would be very difficult to try to change the world in our lifetime. But we're here to apply the pressure because sometimes people think they can get away with things just because no one's talking, but we're here and we're not going anywhere. We're gonna just keep applying more pressure.
Welcome to the school.
Hello.
We are here to talk about Social Justice Bermuda.
Yes.
And yourself, TeAnn, and kind of the life you've led, and also what brought you to addressing social justice issues in the country. Let's start with that. I mean, tell us a bit about what social justice means to you.
So social justice to me is just equality, or even equity, because sometimes equality doesn't exactly look like equality.
What's the difference?
So the difference between equality is kind of like, equality is a level playing field, whereas equity kind of pushes those who need more assistance up. So when it comes to, when you look at people who like are disabled and or able-bodied, correct myself, they sometimes need a little bit more assistance, so they need special sidewalks and things like that. So equality would be a sidewalk. Equity is a sidewalk that's wheelchair accessible for everyone. So that's the kind of things that you have to separate when you look at just social justice. Yeah, that's what it means to me.
Social justice for you is really about how we make the world fairer rather than just leave everything the same.
Yeah, it's about seeing the humanity in everyone. Doesn't matter what creed you are, where you've come from, what your class is, you should be able to be seen as a human, as a whole person, despite all of those things.
And so how is Social Justice Bermuda trying to address some of the social issues here, and what are the big things that you're kind of working on?
So we started with a protest against someone who was appointed here by President Trump. And we just did not want him here, so we started a protest then, and it kind of just galvanized there.
Tell us how you did that. So, like, you saw the news. You said, "This is not right."
Yes.
Who are the people you're speaking to? What was the granular details of how you then led to a protest for people, particularly the students who, you know, they might want to organize something and they're trying to figure out step by step how to do this.
So I came in after the first protest was organized. I actually joined the group at the first protest, and
amazing.
I volunteered, and I was like, if you guys need any help, I'm here for you. But it was just a group of people who decided that enough was enough. We didn't want this person being our U.S. consulate. We didn't want him here. We just did not want him here. So we all came together. We met outside of the U.S. consulate here, and we protested, and we wanted our voices to be heard. Mind you, this is at the beginning of the pandemic, so it was also being cautious about how we show up, making sure we're socially distanced and stuff like that. But at that moment, we decided that no, we did not want this to happen. So we've had several protests since then. It takes a lot of organization on the admin side, like making sure you have people that are able to show up, worrying about collecting donations if you're a actual charity and things like that. Those are things that you have to consider, especially here in Bermuda. You also have to, unfortunately, the side of it is protesting is technically illegal. So
what do you mean?
It's not. It's illegal. Yeah, it's not. You have to have a permit to have a protest. So we kind of went around. There are ways around it, but it was being in contact with the police department to make sure that everyone was safe. We're not trying to have people in the road and get hit. So the police would give us an escort, but there was a certain level of communication that we had to have with the police officers so that we were able to do it safely and make sure that everyone was good and we didn't have any hitches that way.
I mean, like, it's amazing to hear the story of you attending a protest and then getting heavily involved.
Yeah.
For me, one of the first protests I went to, I think it was like 13 or 14, which was crazy, like 20 years ago, and it was against the war in Iraq, when 1 million people in the UK marched against the war. I need to get my dates right, but I think that's when it was. And I saw right in front of me hundreds of thousands of people saying no to something which we felt was wrong. And that, as your first experience, was so powerful because it felt like you weren't alone.
Yeah.
But what still happened was we went to war.
Yes.
The country went to war. Our leaders at the time, Tony Blair, the Prime Minister, decided to go to war. For people who doubt the power of protest, what do you say to them? And for people who say protest is a waste of time, what do you say to those people?
It can seem like a waste of time, but it also sets a precedent for the powers that be. So it shows that even if our leaders decide to make these decisions on our behalf, we don't agree with them. We're just not going to sit here and take it. But it also gives a good sense of community. So going to protests, finding like-minded people. I would not have been close to many of the people in Social Justice Bermuda if I had not gone to this one particular protest. But being able to have that community, it really helps because it can be exhausting work. Like showing up and trying to save the world, it's not an easy job. So being able to just find the community. When I'm not having a good day, I can let them know and they'll push up. Or we all use our strengths. So we're able to, it's not an easy thing to just do this by yourself. Having the team that's all of us, it really does truly help in just getting things done. When it comes to writing public statements on our behalf and things like that. Not everyone is a good secretary, can do that type of work, but there are people that are really good at it. Some of us are lawyers, so being able to have that full range of ideas and collaboratory efforts helps us to do more in our community.
And how about yourself? What role have you played in different causes you've been a part of and in Social Justice Bermuda?
I do a little bit of the social posting and things like that, so trying to, whenever we make any kind of visuals and graphics, getting it uploaded. I'm a part of the food fight team, so trying to bring awareness to food equality in Bermuda, teaching things like farming and farm to table.
I think that was on your photo, right? You had a photo with
I'm a
food,
chef, so I'm a chef full-time.
Totally makes sense now. Okay.
So I am truly passionate about creating access to good foods because growing up we were taught we need to eat carrots to have better eyesight. But if your mom and dad don't know how to cook a carrot, then there's a disconnect that happens. So trying to bridge that gap, that's my passion, is food, trying to give access to good foods to people. That is my big passion.
I'm a big fan of good food. And before my grandpa passed away, I asked him what's the most important thing in life, and he had one word, which was food. Taken very literally, but poetically, it also, I guess, brings us together, brings us as a community, and also allows us to be grateful for the life we have.
Right. Also, it nourishes us, and if we're not able-bodied within ourselves, then it's very hard to go out and try to advocate for others. So when you take care of yourself, you're able to take care of more people around you.
And how do you, with food justice, I mean, for folk who are trying to figure out what kind of cause to get involved in, I mean, it's clear because you're a chef, you know how important food is, more than most. What is it about food justice that you're trying to address, and how?
For me, being a Black woman in Bermuda, the health problems that many of people in my community have that look like me and sound like me is a big issue. And those are many issues in Bermuda that can be curbed simply by our diet habits. So for me, equality looks like everyone having access to healthy foods, and healthy is a word I use loosely. Healthy is what's good for your body, not necessarily what you need to eat and what I need to eat are two different things. But finding and having access to those things helps you have a healthier body, and then that lowers cost of healthcare, that lowers the cost, healthcare is just ridiculously priced in the Western world. So being able to address an issue with what you're eating on one day-to-day basis can have such a huge impact down the line. You're not worrying about high diabetes and high rates of diabetes, high cholesterol, things like that. If I can start now with one plate of food at a time, then those things are not something we have to worry about in the future.
No, it's hugely important. I mean, public health in the UK, there's a huge agenda around it, and my father had diabetes, and so I'm very aware of trying to be careful. I mean, sometimes I have too many sweets and stuff like that, but I do have the blood test which check, pre-diabetic, and I think that, as you say, adds so much to the spending bill. And that removes resources to other things which could be around education or supporting people who really need it. And so the whole preventative measures, having healthy and fit lifestyles, so important.
Super important.
And I'd love to know, because time is short also, social. So there's a lot of causes out there. There are a lot of communities. There are a lot of activists. There are a lot of campaigners. There are a lot of people who want to make a difference.
Yes.
How do you use content and social media to, how do you use it? Do you use it to send out messages? Do you use it to recruit people? Do you use it to raise money? What are your best practices for social media for causes?
We don't raise money. We're not a charity. We're not in this, and none of us are in this for any kind of financial gain. So we don't collect any kind of donations or things like that. We do direct them to people who want to make donations to a charity of a good cause that we support. Cool. However, we use our social media to get information out. So when things are coming up, when bills are being passed, breaking them down, because sometimes trying to read through the legal system, especially in the UK legal system, can be very confusing. So we use our platform to try to break things down into more bite-sized information, or also just steering people in the right direction. So you can go on our website and you can find out where you can sign up. You can volunteer with us. If we're having more protests, we always need more organizers. If we do have a protest and you want to donate something like a case of water or something like that, those are things that we can do to kind of, that's the best way we use our social media platform.
So education, organizing and support. Yeah. That's what that's really fascinating. I mean, for you in Social Justice Bermuda, what's like the long-term vision? Like what is happening over the next few years, and what are the big plans?
So we have big plans. So there's a lot of conversation on cannabis reform right now in Bermuda. We are trying to hold the police accountable for certain actions that have been taken. We're holding our politicians. There was an incident with a female police officer who posted on social media a very racist and very just terrible thing, and she posted it as a joke. But however, we called for her resignation, because if you can joke about that publicly, then obviously those are your beliefs and ideals. So we try to hold the police accountable in that. So we just keep the pressure. We don't want to let the issues die. So we do that. Those are the best ways that we can try to gear things, because it would be very difficult to try to change the world in our lifetime. But we're here to apply the pressure, because sometimes people think they can get away with things just because no one's talking, but we're here and we're not going anywhere. We're going to just keep applying more pressure.
So for people who want to kind of become organizers, and they want to organize against one of the biggest problems that they're kind of concerned about, what kind of characteristics or what kind of skills or kind of things do people need to learn and know in order to be a good organizer?
I think innately just the passion to see change is the one thing that you have to have. That's the one thing that keeps me going. On the days where I don't want to show up, when I'm just like, I have to remember it's a greater picture outside of me and the people that I interact with on a daily basis. But I think just having the drive and the passion I don't know if you can teach those, but having it is definitely a way to keep yourself motivated. Being a good organizer, I like with the group, we're not all front talkers, we're not all in the public. A lot of people have their identity anonymous. So it's a matter of the collective. Like some of us are really good at writing statements, and then other of us are good at editing statements. So there's definitely a balance. So I would try to say, like, find people who have the same passions and the same goals and the same vision, and then use all of your strengths. There's no one strength that's going to do it, but using all of your strengths. If you're a good public speaker, use that to your advantage. If you have a huge platform on social media, use that to your advantage. But it's very difficult to try to do it all on your own, but having that community, even if it's one or two people, just one or two other people that help you to just keep things organized, keeping the goal, whatever the goal is, keep that in view at all times, because you can get lost in the day-to-day of it all, but understanding that what you're doing is going to cause positive change in the world. So keeping that in the forefront of your mind, like that's something that you can't teach that, but you have to learn that for sure.
Yeah, I mean, that commitment and that drive, for some people it's innate, as you say, and actually for some people it's learned through just seeing other people be so committed and to see like what it takes to be resilient, to be tough, and to kind of carry on despite all of the winds that might be blowing against you and the challenges, obstacles that try to bring you down. I mean, for you, what have been the biggest challenges that you personally have faced in trying to achieve social justice? Has there been a specific kind of campaign or like a issue for you as an organizer which you've come across?
I think for me it's definitely just an internal battle. So I have really bad depression and I've suffered for it long term. So sometimes it gets overwhelming when you really look at how many things in the world are wrong. And I'm very empathetic to people. So when I see news articles and I see people just being treated wrong, solely like currently what's happening in Russia and the Ukraine. So when you see African students being denied access to like safety, like those things weigh heavily on me. So trying to get out of that, like I have to remember, sometimes I have to scale it back. Like I have to not look at huge things. Like how can I cause change today in one person's life? Whether that's me walking down the street and saying, good morning, I think you're beautiful, or I love your hair, like something small. I try to do small, tangible things that make people feel good, and that it helps to overcome the grandiose that is all of the problems of the world.
I mean, it's really tough. I mean, you know, thinking way back to when I started reading the news in school and reading newspapers and just being so like overblown by the amount of bad stuff that's happening out in the world. But then also that being good because it's like, okay, I want to discover, I want to uncover, I want to learn, I want to try and see what will make a difference. But I think I've come full circle like you have, where it's like, you know, you get paralyzed by a flood of information, and there's only so much a generation of humans can do, let alone one person.
Right.
And some people might feel guilty for not taking on all the problems. They're like, well, no, this is problem. I need to get involved. Like if I'm not, then I'm a bad person. You know, I'm a bad person. And I think it takes a lot of in a way, courage, but also kind of true understanding about where you belong and where you can really make a difference, and a lot of kind of struggle to get to a point where you're like, I can't do everything. You know, one of my mentors used to say to me, you know, he's not Superman. He used to be like, he's a politician, and everyone would just be like, can you do this, this? It's only 24 hours in a day. You sleep for a large part of it. And he said, I'm not Superman.
Yeah.
And this was a high-powered politician, right? And I think when you come to that very straightforward conclusion that we alone cannot do all these things, but we alone can play a small part in something, I think that helps, because you get to focus, you get to be better, and probably be closer to be the best at maybe achieving the food justice, for example, that you want to achieve in Bermuda, which, you know, as you say, makes it more tangible and narrow, and potentially you can see the impact more directly, versus I need to solve the, you know,
world hunger.
or geopolitical problems between two superpower nations. I mean, but what do you think about, though, like the micro versus the macro, and sort of different roles in social justice, right? Because we have the grassroots organizers, the ones who are working in communities with local folk, day in, day out, trying to make a difference. And then you've got sort of the local governments who are handing out funds to particular things which need it, national governments, you've got big charities. What do you think about the ecosystem of social justice with the different organizations and what parts they play?
They're all important roles. So I think it does take the grassroots to get the fire burning, and attract more people who maybe are in positions of power, who then are able to direct funding into the places that it needs to be. And then they also have an impact on the education, on the amount of people that are able to be reached by this information. So I think every single role is important, but it usually does start with a grassroots organization that's just like, enough is enough. No means no. We are going to stand up and we're going to make our voices known. And then from there, like within our group, you kind of just figure out, well, who are the people that are comfortable doing the public speaking? Because not all of us are comfortable being on camera. So you're able to then, you have a hierarchy, not a hierarchy, but a group, a collective within that you're able to navigate the different spaces. So we all have different professions. So now within our professional fields, we're able to now make decisions. Like I know for me, I'm a chef, so I try to support farms first before I support the grocery store, because I know that directly puts money back into my community, and therefore I'm getting fresher products, and all of those things are connected. So it's something micro that one person does within my business has a larger impact on my clients, and then the choices that they make, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, it's interesting, just kind of like, just because it's so diverse and different, and one of the challenges I think a lot of students face is like just where they can play a role. I mean, just in terms of techniques as well. So you mentioned the power of protest and how standing up and speaking out can make a difference. What are the other tactics and strategies that you think people should learn about and figure out, whether or not it might make sense for them to do? So there's protest. You've kind of mentioned, conscientious purchasing, conscious purchasing of like goods. What are kind of the tactics and techniques that people can do to make the world more just?
You can do things like, I know with us, we try to apply a lot of pressure when when new laws are being passed. Yeah. So trying to break them down and understanding and letting our voice be heard. Like, no, this, although 0.6 to 7 or 1 to 7 sound great. Yeah. 0.2, point AB, that doesn't sound good. Like, we know that it's gonna, so having people who are able to read through and like truly dissect that. So if you're maybe in some kind of law background or some kind of administrative background, being able to digest that, those are ways you're just applying pressure. It doesn't always have to be the protest. It can be the small purchases. It can be volunteering. Okay. Being able to go to and maybe like your schools and volunteering with students. Being able to go to local food banks and things like that, and giving your time, because I don't have the resources to give, but I have time to give. So sometimes showing up to volunteer for something is more effective than trying to raise so much money for an organization. So that's other ways that you can do. Just volunteer as opposed to trying to make money or do a huge protest. Just showing up for the people that need it.
There's a lot there, and so many ways in which people can get involved, which is amazing, because no matter who you are, there is a way to get involved and help make a difference and hopefully make society fairer. Yeah. For you, kind of like Bermuda, for me, what's interesting is like it's the most expensive country in the world.
It's ridiculous.
We've made so many jokes about the $20 strawberries.
Yeah.
The story I don't know, even if it's my last day here, is the story about inequality. Like, is there inequality here?
Yes.
Okay.
Hugely.
So it's the most expensive country in the world, or surely there's like a lot of money to sort that out.
You would think.
Okay.
You would think,
go on,
but unfortunately not. So Bermuda is still a British overseas territory. Okay. So when you look at systems like colonialism that have come in, and then you talk about race and all of those things and how they manifest in societies, there is definitely a huge financial divide. So when you look at families who have two middle to upper class incomes coming into the house, are still potentially living paycheck to paycheck because the cost of our housing is so high. If you want to put your children in private schools, that's a very high cost. When you look at the grocery store, like to spend over $100 on a small bag of groceries is just crazy. Yeah. It's just, it doesn't make any sense. London, it doesn't make any sense. So when you look at the cost of living, even to go to the doctor's office, even though if I have insurance, my copay is still extremely high.
Well, supposedly it's 310% higher than the average cost of living in America, supposedly. Yes. That was a stat which someone shared. I mean, that's huge. Yeah. So how do people support themselves? I mean, I've met folk here who are sort of domestic workers, nannies, and they actually interestingly say this is the best place for them to be a migrant, because the money they're sending back, because the relative level is good globally. Yes. But what you're saying here is like, well, it's bloody tough here because it's just expensive to live here.
So when you look at people who come here from other countries to live and work and earn a living, they do fairly well because they don't have to worry about certain financial things. They tend to do maybe living with more than one people from their country and things like that. So they kind of cut the cost there. Whereas people who inherit homes and things like that, there is, you see a huge, especially when it comes to like exempt companies, the allowances that people who are moving here are given as opposed to people that live here is not the same. So the allowances that they might be making up, like they don't have to cover their rent and things like that, that might be included in their job allowance. People that live in Bermuda are not getting that same.
And so what are people trying to do to address that?
Or
is it just so hard?
It is extremely hard. There's we are always talking about the cost of living. It's constantly a conversation. I think we're in a very interesting space right now where my generation, so I'm 28 now, and so we have now a group of us who are just like, we have to live here. I want to raise my children here. I want to be here.
Committed.
I'm committed to being here. So how can I do that? So it's looking at the budget that recently came out and trying to understand that. What does that look like? How do choices that we're making now affecting us? There was an article that said the pension will be done in 10 and a half years. Okay. I'm 28. There will be no pension for me to have access to. And I look at my parents who are still not retired. So when you think about all that stuff, it's how do we now educate people on making more financial choices and also holding our government accountable. There's no real tangible reason for our cost of living to be so high outside of the fact that it is. And I applaud Bermudians all over because we just make it work. Like I have no idea how we do it, but we make it work. We make sure that we show up and our bills are paid and all of that stuff. And I have no idea how we do it. Cause sometimes
I have no idea too. I'm like, I've been here for a month and it's hard. And I appreciate you sharing that story because when we're in places like this, you sometimes, well, you're not sometimes, you can't see what's going on in places which are not like this. So to know the reality and the fact that people are trying to make a difference there is important. Before we go, because time is short and we both have to leave now, as we were discussing, there's so many kind of levels to try and address. And I think for me, what's really interesting from this conversation is, you know, you've come into a protest and you've now dedicated a large part of your energy to this cause. Why should people get involved at a grassroots level?
I feel like it's where I can see the most change happen, and that's just my personal experience. So I come from a huge family, so for me, volunteering my time, so I've been babysitting since I was a baby. Okay. So volunteering my time is something that I've naturally done. Like my grandpa, he almost lost his home in helping start the PLP party here years ago. So like for me, advocacy has always been in my blood. It's entrenched in me. My family are very huge supporters of the PLP party. And so for me, it was a no-brainer. For me, when I see people need help, I help them if I can. So I know for me, something in my family that's simple is we like to feed people. So if you need a plate of food, you can always come to our house.
Come through.
Yes. We will always, so that's something that I do naturally. Like if you need something, I might not be able to get it to you, but maybe I know someone who can. Or maybe if I use my platform to now talk about maybe a family is in need, I can put that out on my platform and people are able to find me and contact me, and so we can get the people that need the help. So starting off from the grassroots is, I find, the most rewarding for me because I won't see, if I get to a certain position and I'm in charge of sending funds, I won't see that. I know that the money will go there, but then is it being done right in those places? Like, is it being allocated as best as it could? I prefer to be on the grassroots side of it.
And I'm sure many people listening to just your testimony there will choose to take that path now to go the grassroots way. You've just shared a story about how people have contributed so much to your commitment to serve. As we end, do you have any comments or advice or tips to share with people, to contribute back in terms of one thing to leave them with?
I would say, what makes you happy? What are the things that make you happy, whether it's art, whether it's being able to exercise, and then look around you and do everyone have the access to the things that make you happy? If no, how can you do something to make sure that more people have access to the things that bring you happiness? Because at the end of the day, we all deserve to be happy. We all deserve that. So if you do anything, if you're looking for where to start or anything, what are the things that bring you joy? Whether it's food, whether that's whatever that looks like for you, how can you bring that to more people? And you never know where that will take you on a social justice standpoint.
That is so beautiful. The reason why I say beautiful because it's simple but also so meaningful, because sometimes we tend to overcomplicate things. But yeah, if there are things that make you happy, as you say, do other people have access to that? And if not,
how can I get them access? Yeah.
That's a wonderful way to end.
Yeah.
TeAnn, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
I appreciate you being here and sharing your wisdom and experience with students at School of Social Justice.
Yes.
I can't wait to be back to have some of the food as well.
Please.
So appreciate your work. Keep on moving. I can't wait to see what you do with Social Justice Bermuda in the future. And yeah, whenever you're in London, holler at me and I'll see you there.
I will do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.
Yes.
Thank you so much to all of you who have become monthly supporters of the School of Social Justice. Your monthly contributions make a huge difference and allow us to deliver content which is educational and teaches people how to make a difference. If you want to become a patron as well, it's really simple. All you got to do is go to the schoolofsocialjustice.com website, then click supporters, and choose how much you want to contribute, whether it be £20 a month, a £5 a month, or a £10 a month. Let's go with a £10 a month. It's really simple. Put in your details, put in your card number, click pay now, and you become a supporter. Whilst £5 a month is not much individually, it makes a huge difference collectively. And if we get 2,000 patrons, we can independently deliver content to you every single week to help ensure that we fulfill this mission of training the next generation of Martin Luther Kings. Thank you so much to all of you who have become patrons so far. You've made a huge difference and allowed us to continue with our work. And if you do become a patron, thank you so much. Your support means a lot. Take care. Bye.